Hello, I'm Ben. Welcome to the channel. Today we're going to talk about negotiation, and the primary point of discussion is going to be this book, Getting to Yes. This is by Roger Fisher and William Ury. I've read books by these two guys before. I will say this one is not laid out in a way that I enjoyed very much. It seems a bit jumbled and crammed in here. So I'll go through what they say and kind of talk about the points that I got from the book. And I'll say this as well. There are some great books out there on negotiation, right? Two of the best that I've ever read are these two. This one by Chester Carras. It's in business as in life, you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate. I've had this book for probably 20 years. I read this in college and have read it several times since then. This is on my annual reread list. It's just that good. I think if you look through this book, it's highlighted just about on every page. There was a lot of great stuff in this book. So I would recommend this on negotiation. I will do a video on that at some point. And probably the best book written on negotiation is Chris Voss's book, Never Split the Difference. There, that one is. This is a fantastic book. Pick yourself up a copy. When it comes to negotiation, there's not one better. I think that his background is kind of interesting too. Former agent, and what he's done is negotiated for lives versus business and things of that nature. So if you think about negotiation, you don't think about the fact that those folks negotiate for people's lives from time to time in situations. So let's jump into this Getting to Yes by Fisher and Ury. There it is again, Getting to Yes. A lot of good points in the book, but I'll run through it. Here we go. One, don't argue over positions, argue over content, right? You're not arguing. The idea is you're going to get to a win-win situation. That should be the goal of any negotiation, getting to the point of win-win. There's a saying that in a negotiation, everyone loses because nobody gets what they want. If that's the case, then you're looking at a short-term picture where it's a sell-based thought process. If it's a relationship-based thought process, then a win-win is there, and you're doing the best you can to represent your needs while considering their needs. So that's a relationship thought process as opposed to a sales thought process. So something to put out there. Separate people from the problem. That's the first thing you want to do. You're not trying to get aggravated with these people or dislike these people. You're trying to settle your problem and help them settle a problem as well through this discussion. Invent win-wins. Focus on intent, not positions, right? So focus on the intent and the interest, not the position the person's in. Insist on using objective criteria, right? So you want to list out your needs internally to yourself and your co-parts on your team. List out what you need, what you primarily need from the deal. And if there's some that are extremely important, then you don't close the deal without those needs. And that's as simple as it gets. And if you get to an impasse, that may be something that you then share with the other side of the table and say, look, if we can't get this out of this, I don't see that there's a way to make a deal here. That's something that you get into. That's a take it or leave it type suggestion. But that is a possible and it is a probable option from time to time in negotiations. Don't deduce their intentions with your fears. So don't automatically assume that they're trying to take the whole table as well, and try to make sure that you correct what you're doing there. Don't assume during the process. I typically say with negotiation, act like what is said is all that's there. So if it's not been said, then you don't assume it. You act like it's not there. Don't deduce your intentions with your fears, and don't blame them with your problems. Operations, the actual act of operating, suggests that there is a problem. I've said it in videos before. If you're not seeing problems on a daily basis, then you're not paying attention, right? Inspect what you expect. Don't blame them with your problems. You're there to come up with a solution that's inherently tied to them in some way, shape, or form, which is why you're there at the table with them. Make sure they participate in the process. Give them a stake in the process and in the outcome. So if they're participating and you've got a partnership in this, now you've got an active, valid negotiation that will go somewhere. Give them a stake in the outcomes. If you get this, then we get that, creating that win-win. Make your proposals consistent with their values. And that's a very key piece of a negotiation. So, for example, if you're negotiating from the States, we sometimes want to dive right in, right? We act like time is money, but if you're dealing with folks from Japan, that's not what they do. They want to get to know you first. They want to talk about that. They have cultural expectations that they have to have met before they can get into a conversation around business needs, sales, profits, etc. Same thing with South American countries and Mexico. Sometimes in negotiations with those countries, you have to slow it down a bit. They take breaks, siestas. People have joked about those, but the fact is, in those siestas, you get to rest your brain from the situations. You can come back fresh, or you can have a brainstorming situation to come back and offer solutions that may better support your success and your win-win options. So that's just a way to think that culturally, sometimes there's some ideas that you may have to recognize and understand. You also have to recognize and understand emotions. People are emotional about a lot of things. You need to pay attention to those things and make sure that their core concerns are being discussed and being addressed. If you acknowledge that their emotions are legitimate and you don't react to emotions or outbursts, you just take it as it's facts that are being laid on the table. That's the best suggestion I can do. I've seen people before react to emotion and it just gets escalated. That's not going to go anywhere. You get to a point where you get to an impasse and you're going to have people refusing to negotiate. They're going to escalate their demands. They're going to basically give you calculated delays and do those type things. So the best thing to do is not react to emotional outbursts. Listen actively, acknowledge what is being said, speak to be understood. So don't speak to make people trip up, and don't say things that print illusions or may make confusing suggestions. Speak to be understood. Speak about yourself. Don't talk about them and how they did something. Talk about you and how you do what you do and what you expect to do through the deal. Speak for a purpose and build a working relationship. If you face the problem and not the people, you will be more successful, and the interest should define the problem. Okay, you should say, well, this is the problem, this is our interest, and then you can see what the issue is with the problem. Each side has multiple interests. You have to take that into consideration, and the most powerful arguments come from basic human needs. So if you're considering their needs, if you're considering the Maslow's hierarchy of needs for that business or for everybody in that room, even though it's a business being represented, you're dealing with individuals, right? You're dealing with human beings. So at the end of the day, that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that's going to be what drives their intent and what drives their view of success and failure in this deal. So focus on that and make sure your interests are coming alive and showing the care around that. Acknowledge their interest as part of the problem. Put the problem before your answer. So say, this is what is happening and this is what we'd like to do about it. And that's how you want to do those things. A cause and effect, a issue and solution. By doing that, you're painting a clear picture. They don't have to assume what it is you want. You said, this is the issue and this is what we'd like to do about it. When you're doing that, you're laying out solid lines to move through very quickly in a negotiation process. And it's just like anything else. Once you start stacking up some wins and celebrate those wins, now it feels like it's a give and take and it's a win-win situation. You're going to have people across the table that are bought in now to your thought process. They're going to see that you're not trying to take the whole cake and leave them nothing, right? So be concrete, but be flexible. Be hard on the problem and soft on the people, right? And that goes for both sides of the table. Take care of your people too. I've seen negotiations go away where the team kind of turns on each other and kind of turns on themselves. Not only did they not create a win-win situation for them and their customer, but they also drove a wedge between the team where people would participate with them anymore in that process. If you're going to disrespect people and not appreciate their position and their understanding of your needs and your corporate culture, your corporate culture's suggested needs, then you shouldn't be going to the table with those people. The conference room, the negotiation table is not a place where you correct people and try to change their view. You want to ask for preferences, never make threats. When you make threats to people, there's a fight or flight natural response that we have that we can't help. It's going to be natural mind. Obviously, imagine this fight. So someone makes a threat to me, the whole demeanor changes the situation. One, I try to ignore the emotion and treat it as an outburst. But two, once people make threats, I don't think that sticks to fair standards. I don't think that frames issues as objectives. I think what that does is drives a wedge and kind of develops an issue that can't be stepped around. Disrespect is not something I tolerate in any room. Whether I'm dealing with a subordinate, a vendor, a customer, a boss, I don't care. Disrespect is not something that's going to happen to me in my lifetime. It's not about ego. It's just I'm there because you asked me to be or you pay me to be. So respect what I do there with my efforts. If you don't, I can take my efforts elsewhere. That's just a straight to the point way to look at that. And I suggest that people consider that. Develop your best alternative. This is the key point of any negotiation. Develop a fine understanding of what your best alternatives are and write that down. Anything that gets to that and anything that doesn't deal with that core around that best alternative, that's just detail. So put that down and you can give that as some of the wins possibly to get back to what you need on that best alternative. And then let's talk about the negative parts around negotiation. Watch out for psychological warfare, basically when they try to put stress on the situation or on the time period, where they start jumping into personal attacks, or you see good cop, bad cop, or good guy, bad guy play. People that refuse to negotiate outright, escalated demands, that concocted delay where they just keep trying to delay, and that take it or leave it attitude. My thought process is when things go negative in the negotiation process, you're no longer focusing on a relationship. So at that point, you need to ask yourself why you're at the table, and if it goes that way, then I would have those questions answered. It's always fine to shut it down, walk away, and say I have to come back and do this another time. If people can't give it the proper focus, the proper attention, the proper mentality, then that may be the thing to do. A lot of things people ask about getting to yes, questions about fairness and principled negotiation. Does positional bargaining ever make sense? No. Argue about the process, the what you want to come from it, not the position. What if the other side believes in a different standard of fairness? That typically is going to be something you find. Should I be fair if I don't have to be? Absolutely. Remember, you're building a relationship, right? What do I do if people are the problem? Then you focus on how you get that corrected. Get the best you can out of those people, because that's the position that's represented at the moment. If you're building a relationship with the entity, then sometimes people change. So do what you can, do the best you can with what's in front of you. Should I negotiate even with terrorists or someone like Hitler? Absolutely not. Why are you at the table? One of the things I say to people is do good, right? And one part of doing good is being good. And to be a good person, what you have to do is you don't deal with bad people, okay? At some point, from a business perspective, look at Volkswagen. Volkswagen, was a German company, and Hitler was mentioned here. So in Nazi Germany, Volkswagen supplied vehicles to them. The thing that was a Volkswagen, that was one of the vehicles that Hitler was riding around in. Volkswagen still to this day takes hit for that, right? Nearly 100 years later. It's 2023, nearly 100 years later, it's still said to be that. And that's the thing. When you do business, and they didn't have a choice. I mean, when the world's taken over by a group of people, they didn't have a choice. But just think about that. You absolutely shouldn't. Should I adjust my negotiation approach to account for differences in personality, gender, culture, and so on? You always want to consider the culture. Everything else there I wouldn't worry about, because if the culture specifically runs a certain way and you hold true to that, you should be supportive. This is a pretty good book, guys. A lot of knowledge in it. I did not care for the way it was written, the way it was put together. It's kind of clunky to get through, but it's worth taking a look at. Getting to yes, negotiating agreement without giving in. And this is the updated revised edition. This is a product of the Harvard Negotiation Project, and it's Robert Fisher and William Ury that penned this book. The revised editions came from Mr. Bruce Patton. Well, there you are. Hopefully that's a book and a video that you found useful. If it is, please like and subscribe. Please share. We're trying to grow the channel. It is growing, and that's exciting to see. I'm Ben. Hopefully this is useful to you. Be good.